Hello folks, it's Madison. Welcome back to my channel. This week's card video, and for the rest of the month basically, I will be celebrating Pride here on my channel. So this video features frogs celebrating all the different sectionalities of Pride and the LGBTQ community. So to start off the video, or the card making process, I had stamped everything out already just to save some time. My frog images come from the Don't Worry Be Hoppy stamp set, Say What Spring Critter stamp set, Totally Awesome stamp set, all from Fawn. I have a whole bunch of rainbows and clouds stamped out from the All the Cloud stamp set from Fawn. And then I have these little flag images that are stamped out from the Beam Me Up stamp set, and I also used the coordinating dies for all these images. So as I mentioned, everything was pre-stamped, and I used Fawn jet black ink, and I think it was 100 pound just plain white cardstock from Michael's. And once that everything had dried, I went ahead and started coloring. So I started by coloring my clouds, and for my clouds I just wanted them to be simple, nothing too much, because they aren't the focal point of this card. So I used BG10 and BG quadruple 0, so that's 4 zeros. And then I began to color my frogs. So my little frogs, I used YG03 and YG11. My basic Copic coloring technique I use in all my videos, where I Copic color, is I lay down my darkests and then I move on to my lightest colors. I just find that's what works for me, and I get a good blend, so that's what I went ahead and did. So I used that to color my frogs, and I also added some stippling textures just around the sides of their faces, just to add some interest and stuff to my frogs. Moving on to coloring my larger frogs here, I am using YG23 and YG17, just once again keeping them within the green colors and using the darkest to lightest method that works for me. And once again, on all of my frog images, I am stippling or just adding dots of color after I have blended everything, just to go in and add textures to my frogs so they're not so bland and flat, in my opinion. This other frog here, I used YG17 and YG06, so I'm using a different lighter shade. It is more like lime green for sure, so maybe not the most accurate frog color, but I just wanted to add some variation between my frogs once again, so everything doesn't seem so repetitive and flat. So after I finished coloring my little froggy dudes, I'm going to start coloring my rainbows. So for my first big rainbow, I'm coloring it the classic Pride colors from the Pride flag, which do represent the entire community. So I'm starting off with my red stripe, which is R24 and R29. So I'm coloring my first rainbow hoop and like a little line on my flag here. For orange, I'm using YR07 and 04. Moving on to yellow, I am using Y15 and Y13. YG23 and YG06 for my greens, B29 and B26 for my blues, and it was at this point I realized I need an extra little rainbow hoop, I guess, for my purple shade, or else it just wouldn't be the Pride flag. So I went in and drew that, altering my image, meaning I did have to fussy cut this one particular little rainbow here, but it wasn't anything complicated. So I went and lined it with my Copic multi-liner, and then I'm using V04 and V06 for my purple shades. And if you pause here, I have like a little cheat sheet to like the various pride flags and their colors. If you feel like trying this out and making them on your own, I hope it helps. You can also feel free to just kind of Google it and lots of resources will come up. Next I'm using violets, pinks, and blues for my pride or my bisexual pride flag and a little mini rainbow. And I'm also using pink, yellow, and blue for my pansexual pride flag and little mini rainbow. Those flags only have 3 colors, so I just felt like they fit perfectly for these tiny little miniature rainbows that only have 3 little hoops here. So I'm coloring them in the appropriate order, so that is why I did Google it, just because I really didn't have it memorized or anything, so that's why I had my little cheat sheet off to the side, and it helped lots. I also kind of penciled in guides as to how thick I wanted my lines to be on my pride flags, because I wasn't being very even at the beginning, and it helped. I'm also using pinks, green, and blue for my polysexual flag. And here I am using a light blue, white, and pink for my little transgender flag, as well as this big rainbow and a mini rainbow. So I am just once again following the order of the flag, and it fit perfectly on the bigger rainbow. And then for the miniature one, I'm just using all 3 colors. And then, you know, I'm going in and doing the flag as per usual. I guess it gets kind of repetitive, but the coloring was very quick for this card. And here I am coloring in these final 2 miniature little rainbows. So I'm coloring them in the colors of the asexuality flag and the aromantic flag. And then next I will start cutting out stuff for my actual card. So here I have a piece of just teal cardstock from Michaels, and I'm using the Scalloped box card pop-up die set from Fawn. I know, a mouthful. So I'm taking the big main piece and I'm cutting out 2 of those, as you can see here. And then I have these little strip pieces, and I only used 2, but I did cut out 3. So, you know, just keep that in mind. I didn't actually use all 3 of them in the actual card. But it doesn't hurt to have those. I just set them off aside and I'll use them in a future project. So this is just for demonstration because explaining it can be hard. So I have the big actual piece here, and then I have all these squares and rectangles. One set is smaller, one set is bigger. So I'm taking these bigger pieces, so the bigger rectangle and the larger square, and I'm gonna cut them out using some of this paper from the Hello Sunshine Remix Petite paper pack from Fawn. It's just this piece of paper that has these cute little rainbows on it. And I'm cutting out 2 squares and 1 rectangle. And then there they are, just to show you. And I'm gonna set those off on the side and I'll use them later. Next, I'm gonna take these, or it's the smaller rectangle and the smaller square pieces, and I'm gonna be die cutting them using the Really Rainbow Petite paper pack. I picked this particular rainbow paper because it's kind of subtle, or I guess it's not super thinly lined, so it's less demanding on the eye. I didn't want my card to be super busy because I already knew I was going to have a whole bunch of elements going on. So once again, I'm cutting out 2 squares, and I'm also going to cut out 2 rectangles for this one. So yeah. And as you can see here, I am cutting them out in a special way. I have a square and then a rectangle and then another square, so that when I have them kind of glued onto my card, it will kind of go in like a rainbow order, I guess. So one square is kind of pinks, then I have like the rainbow in the middle, and then I kind of have the cooler tones on the other square. And then this rectangle here is going to be kind of in the center up top. It won't be kind of a part of this rainbow. So I just tried to encapsulate as many rainbow colors as I could in this little piece. I'm probably not explaining this the best, but I promise when you actually look at the card, it does make more sense. Moving on, I have these giant pieces that I had die cut previously, and when you die cut them, the die embosses these little lines into the actual piece. So I'm going ahead and folding them along these lines and creasing them using my bone folder just to get nice crisp edges here. So I'm going ahead and folding them in half, and I'm folding the flaps down and these little tabs on the side. So I'm going to do that on both of these larger pieces. With my larger pieces now creased, I'm taking some Be Creative tape and I'm applying them to one of the tabs. And then I'm going to go ahead and line up my two large pieces together, trying to get them nice and lined up. And then I'm going to go ahead and stick them on next to each other, using my bone folder just to make sure I have a great hold between the two pieces so nothing falls apart. And then I'm going to go ahead and add more tape to this last tab, but I won't be putting the whole box together just yet because I'm going to decorate it before I do that. Just makes it easier in my opinion. Moving on, I have my little tab inserts that are going to go inside my box, and they have these little folding bits on the sides where I will apply adhesive and it'll stick to the insides of the box. So I'm just folding them down, giving them a good crease, and I'm going to apply my Be Creative tape on the sides. So I'm going to start to decorate my pop-up box card a little bit here. So I'm taking my two halves I had put together in my larger square and rectangle, and I'm just going to glue those suckers down onto my big pop-up box card piece. So I'm using my ATG gun, and I'm trying my best to kind of get them as lined up as possible within these little creased lines. It is more clear in person than, the creases don't show up as well on camera, but I promise they're there, and I'm trying my best to line them up. I am also gluing down my smaller rectangles and squares on top, so I'm folding my flaps down, and that is where I'm going to glue down my squares and rectangles. So I'm gluing them down in a rainbow order, I guess. When you kind of wrap the box around, it does make more sense as to what I'm doing, but I had laid them out and then I'm gluing them down. So if you're kind of doing the same thing, you can just follow along and it'll turn out. So I have my rainbow piece, my rainbow rectangle in the middle, and then I have my cool shades. As you can see, the blues kind of face together, and then I have on the other side my pinks, so that when you kind of wrap it around each other, it'll be like a rainbow. And then I'm flipping that over, and this is on the opposite side of my flaps here, and I'm gluing on my other little rainbow rectangle piece, and yeah, I'm just using my ATG gun for that as well, and trying my best to line it up. Next, I am taking just some scrap white cardstock I had lying around, and I'm using the Oliver's Stitched ABCs dies from Fawn, and I'm just using the words, or the letters in Pride, and then I'm going to cut those out in my die cutting machine. So these are my little die cuts after I had ran them through my machine. So I'm just kind of popping them out. I'm taking out the little holes from the P, R, and D because I don't need them for my card. And then I'm just gonna store away my little letters in this bowl off to the side so I don't lose any of them. So yeah. Moving on, I have my little Misty here, and this rectangle I had die cut using the stitched rectangle frames from Fawn, but of course you can just measure and cut a rectangle accordingly to the size of your pop-up card box. But this will be like a note panel that is going to be glued to the back of my note card box, or my pop-up card box. Yeah, that's what it is. So it'll just be like a place for you to write for your recipient. So I I'm using this stamp set. It's the Rainbow Greeting stamp set from My Favorite Things, and I felt like it was very fitting for my card and just Pride in general today. So I am lining up the sentiment, follow your rainbow, and I'm stamping that with the same Lawn Fawn jet black ink, and then I'm going to set that off to dry before I glue it down. So as you can see here, it is dried. It is ready to be stuck down. So I'm using my Scotch ATG gun, applying adhesive to the back, and I'm sticking it onto the back of my card and just lining it up. So what I am doing here is I had selected some of the images I want to use for these little tab pieces that are going to be inserted in my card box. So these tab pieces are going to have little scenes that go on in the middle of my pop-up card box. So I decided to kind of have all my little Pride, classic Pride stuff going on one tab. So I have my little jumping frog. I have him kind of like jumping on a rainbow or something and holding a little Pride flag. And then I also have this little cloud here. So it's all just kind of one piece. I'm using Lawn Fawn liquid glue to adhere that all together. And then I'm just going to take this clear acrylic block just to hold it down so it dries nice and flat. And it's kind of the same routine here because I wanted to keep all my trans Pride stuff together. So I have my larger rainbow, I'm gluing that down onto this cloud, and I have my little mini rainbow tucked behind it as well. And then I'm just gluing my little flag behind my frog so it kind of looks like he's holding it. So I have kind of two separate pieces for this little tab scene, I guess. Yeah. So this might be a little bit hard to see, but I do have scrap acetate, and I'm going to be trimming that into little strips to hold up my little frog pieces so I can have kind of like hovering elements for my little scenes on my tabs, if that makes any sense. So I'm just kind of eyeballing little strips that are like thick enough to fit and sturdy enough to fit behind my frog here. So I'm going to have a little strip coming behind my frog and behind the other side of my rainbow where the cloud is. I'm also cutting out little strips for my little trans scene that is going on the other tab here. So just eyeballing them, using scrap, and trimming them. Alright, so I got my little gay frog chunk, I guess, and I have my little acetate pieces that you can't really see because they're clear. So I'm just taking some Be Creative tape, putting them on the bottom of my frog and my little cloud here. I'm removing the release paper, and then I'm going to try my best to stick my little acetate pieces on in a straight way, which is ironic considering this is a very gay card. But bear with me. So I am just sticking those down and using my, my bone folder? Yes, my bone folder to kind of rub them in and make sure I have a nice good, adhesion between the two pieces. And as you can see here, it'll just kind of hover above my little tab. So once I kind of figure out how high I want my acetate to be up, I guess, or how high I want my frog to be placed, or hovering or floating, I am then going to apply some of that tape once again onto my acetate, and then I'm going to stick my little froggy piece to my little tab piece. One thing that should be noted is I ended up taking this apart and placing my frog a little bit higher up so he's floating higher, and I also placed him a little off to the left side, not in the center. Moving on to my little trans Pride frog scene going on here, I took my other tab I had with the tape and stuff on the sides, and I'm going to glue down my little frog onto it using the Lawn Fawn liquid glue pen, just because I didn't want him hovering or anything, because that would be kind of weird if he was just hovering in space. That's why I don't have any acetate pieces cut out for him. But my little rainbows and clouds and that chunk there, I will be kind of making hovering and floating in the sky. So it's the same deal with the last piece. I am applying some of the Be Creative tape, making sure I get a good adhesion, removing the release paper, attaching my acetate little strip, and making sure once again, that is nice and stuck down, so nothing's gonna fall apart with my bone folder. And then here I am doing the same thing again. I'm taking some of that Be Creative tape, applying it to the bottom of my acetate strips, and then I'm going to stick that behind or on the back of my little tab here. So it kind of looks like it's floating and, you know, it's hovering in space. So here I am continuing to decorate my flaps and stuff before I assemble my actual box card pop-up thing, just because it's easier to decorate it and decorate these flaps individually while they are still 2D and I can kind of have them laying flat, as opposed to when I put the whole box card together and everything's a little more finicky that way. So what I'm doing with my bottom middle flap, or it is the one that is closest on the left, is I am, you know, putting the words pride, or the word pride, with my letters here I had cut out previously. So I'm starting off by gluing down the letter I in the center, just eyeballing it, making sure it's as close to center as I can get. And then I'm going to work my way outwards. That is so I get really good sort of even spacing between all my letters, as opposed to working left to right. The spacing might not be great. You might kind of run out of room or something, so just working from the middle outwards works the best. Next, I am decorating this other square flap, so it has kind of blues and pinks, so I felt like using all of my bisexual rainbows and flags and stuff on this piece, just because blue and pink, or blue and purple, are a part of the flag already, so it kind of works. So I'm gluing down my little rainbow and my little tiny little cloud in the sky here, and I also glued my little flag behind my little frog dude here, and I'm using liquid glue for all of this. And then I'm going to apply my frog holding his little flag onto the bisexuality piece. And I'm using my acrylic block just to make everything, you know, dries nice and flat. And I'm kind of repeating the same process on my other little square flap here. So it is the pink flap, which kind of coincides with the pink stripe on the pansexual flag. So I'm using my little pan rainbow, gluing it behind this bigger cloud here. Gonna let that dry and then glue it onto my flap. And I also have the flag once again glued behind the frog, so it kind of looks like he's holding it. You know, they're celebrating, they're having a good time. And then I'm going to glue both those elements down onto my flap. So I'm just gluing my final little froggy piece here. He comes in two parts. He has a front half and a back half. And it kind of gives him the illusion that he's hanging on to something. So I'm gluing him onto my last flap here. This flap won't be folded down or anything. It'll be sticking straight up. So it kind of looks like my frog is hanging off the top of the card. Yeah, so I'm just gluing him down, and I'm gluing the little flag, the polysexual flag, underneath his little hand there. And then I'm going to flip him over and glue his little butt onto the back half of my little frog here. And I'm just using the same Lawn Fawn liquid glue for all of that, and I'm using an acrylic block to kind of hold him down and make sure he dries nice and flat. So to finish off the decorating part of this card, I had these extra mini little rainbows left over, so I'm just gluing them onto this little rectangle piece that has the pride sentiment. And I had this extra miniature little cloud piece, and I didn't know where else to put it, so I kind of threw it on my little bisexual rainbow over here. And once again, same, just using liquid glue and an acrylic block to make sure everything dries nice and flat. So next I am just doing the final assembly of my card here. So I have my tabs with the release paper removed on the sides. I am then going to glue them down on this little square section. It is underneath my square flap. and my tabs or my, scenes are facing on the wrong side here. Like, they're not facing good sides up, they're good sides down. And they are apart from each other. And then I'm gonna fold this in half, and then normally I got stuck here, like one of my tabs was glued incorrectly on the other side, but once you fold it in half and you press it down, it should open up and work. I'm probably not explaining this the best, nor am I showing it great, so I will link one of the Lawn Fawn videos down below where they kind of show the assembly of the box card, in case this is maybe your first time and you have no idea what's going on, and I'm not helpful at all. So to finish off this card here, I am just taking off the release paper off this final tab to put my two box card halves together and just finish off my card. And with that done, that's about it for this card video. So thank you for watching. If you want to support me and the channel, feel free to subscribe, like the video, comment, maybe share it with a friend. It's a great way to help support me and the channel. I also have an Instagram link down below if you want to go check me out there. I also have various pride organizations in the description box below if you want to go help the LGBTQ community that way. Thank you for watching, have a great day, and I'll see you all in a new video.